Hi, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. One of the things that I talk about a lot on the show and don't often accomplish is going outside of Winnipeg and sort of branching out into all of the music communities in other cities, other towns, other communities. And there's so many of them. And every time I do, I get excited because it's like, oh, this is something that's been happening often for a long time. Some of these artists have been, performing in Brendon or Selkirk or Portage or wherever. And I just, being so Winnipeg centric and so kind of stuck within the perimeter, don't really branch out. And so I think this is a good opportunity on this episode to talk about an event that happens outside of Winnipeg, in one of the many other thriving Manitoba music communities. So I think that the best way to start this off is if my guest wants to introduce himself and maybe give a bit of background, because, and we'll get into this, but I know you've had a lot of involvement in Winnipeg bands going back a few decades now. And that's where a lot of people might know you from, but you've developed something interesting after that life. So if you want to start off by introducing yourself and giving a bit of background, that'd be great.
Okay. Awesome to be here.
Well, thanks, Ted. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Long time listener, first time caller. I'm Brendon Ehinger. Some people might remember me from such bands as the Vagiants, or Bucko, or Mickey Moto, Volume, Artificial Joy. The list kind of goes on. I'm an ex-Winnipegger, an expat. I grew up in Selkirk and started playing in bands in the very early 90s. That's just part of the story, I guess.
Sure.
I'm not gonna go into those unless you want to talk about any particular bands, but
we'll see. We may get to some of that. Yeah.
yeah. I'll zoom ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
So as the band kind of lifestyle sort of wound down, especially when my son was born,
I can relate.
you kind of stopped going out late and stuff. So I started making weird electronic music in my basement. It was sort of like a progression from the Mickey Moto band days.
Okay.
Exploring synthesizers, and around 2018, I kind of jumped into the world of modular synthesizers. And sorry, I should backtrack a little bit more before that.
Sure.
In 2016, I moved to Brendon, Manitoba, and Brendon has a long history of being kind of a punk rock mecca for
Totally.
us 90s bands that
Yeah.
grew up gigging around Manitoba. What I found when I moved here is that that sort of dried up. There wasn't really an easy music scene to slide into when I moved to Brendon at 45 or however old I was at the time.
Right.
So,
well, that doesn't help either, right? Because it's usually breaking into a new music scene, you want to be 20 or 18 or something. And
exactly, and that just wasn't in the cards when I got here. But as I said, around when my son was born in 2013, I started exploring bedroom electronic music. Sitting in my headphones with a synthesizer in front of me and just making bleep bloop sounds and seeing where it took me. So after being in Brendon for a while, I kind of had this realization that I needed to sort of get people out here so that I could have a bit of a scene, have a bit of a community. And I mentioned I started jumping into the modular synthesizer world around 2018. And I just found that the online community in that world was so generous and like kind of cool to help me like learn this new music making process and stuff like that. And I saw the community in Manitoba building. Peers of mine in Winnipeg, Yo-Yu, Ali Khan, Chris Harder, who goes by Bondegi, but has also been involved in so many bands over the years as well, Scott Clark. In 2019, I decided to just invite a few of my buddies out to Brendon and set up a couple like low profile pop-up gigs at a coffee shop, a bakery, the art gallery.
Cool.
Kind of worked my connections, got a local printer to print up some posters for free and made it seem bigger than it actually was.
Yeah.
And it worked out great. So I decided to roll with it, and I intended on kind of doing a follow-up to that in 2020, and on a whim, not really a whim, but on encouragement from my partner, I applied for a grant through the Manitoba
Okay.
Arts Council to try and do something with Prairie Wires, because it was just this kind of flight of fancy passion project of mine, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got the grant. And then COVID happened, and I had to sit on it for a long time. But yeah, September 12th marked the second, what is now, I'm thinking, a biannual
Cool.
uh, festival of electronic music and sound, and art. And Prairie Wires Modular, the idea was to do something that involved modular synthesis in every kind of presentation. So this year we had artists from Alberta, Saskatchewan, a visual artist from Yellowknife was
Oh, wow.
involved. Um, a bunch of folks from Winnipeg came up for it. There's a couple local artists. I'm counting myself because
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
not a
yeah.
lot of modular scene here in Brandon, but yeah, like the community really came out and showed their support, and it was an awesome, like, full day of hanging out under the sun, finding shade where we could. People set up their systems, and we just kind of networked and showed each other what we
Cool.
were up to. And then there were some performances in the afternoon, and this main stage show at night, which had projections, and
Oh, wow.
like, it was some really awesome kind of um, awesomeness that happened.
That's great, especially in a year like where the pandemic is just kind of winding down too, right? I mean, there's still a lot of people who are hesitant to even go out to a show, or let alone play a show, right? So it's cool that you got
Yeah.
a good response
Well,
despite that.
well, what I found, like, Brandon is a pretty chill town,
Yeah.
as far as that's concerned, with some great resources. And I happened to get a weekend that the Riverbank Discovery Center, in 2019, end of 2019, built a brand new amphitheater
Oh, nice.
stage.
That's convenient.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could compare it in a way to the stage at the Forks. Like, it's just
Okay.
it's a bit smaller, but it's a big open air stage. Lots of room for people to space out in front, and it just became the perfect day and perfect venue for something like this, because people were able to come and just feel like COVID safe and comfortable
Yeah.
with interacting outdoors. Uh, we paid attention to the protocols, but people have been wanting this, and that was the response I was getting from artists. Like, thank you for doing this. It was so great to like come together in person. Some people had only met online, even
Yeah.
within Winnipeg, and came to
They had to
this,
come
and
to
were able
Brandon to
to,
meet each
like,
other. That's cool.
yeah, meet each other in person, and hang out and just
Yeah.
nerd out.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you is because you're not the only person that I've met that I've had on the show who has gone from playing live music with traditional instruments, I guess you want to call it, to then, getting in a bit of an obsession with synthesizers, specifically
Yeah.
modular synthesizers. So what is the appeal to you? Like, what kind of works for you with that type of music?
Um, I think I've always really liked like improvising within playing music, when you're playing in bands and you're just jamming,
Yeah.
and like going on and on an idea and seeing where it takes you. That's how, I mean, I'm not a traditional music theory composer kind of thing, where I sit down with notation and everything has
Yeah,
to be
sure,
written out
sure.
and stuff. The bands I've been in, it's always been like that. You just get together and jam and see where it takes you. And um, I guess when I discovered, like, the magic box in the background there, um, the the ability to customize the system so that you can create all of these sounds, and then just kind of, patch it up and set it free.
Yeah.
Like it's a very improvisational instrument in that regard. You don't have presets, you don't have prescribed, like, sounds
Yeah.
and ways to kind of put it together so that it's always the same every time. It, like
It's not like pressing
playing a
go on the Casio and it plays a beat for you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, like, there's modules that you can set things up like that, but it's always a different journey when you get into it, and you can just lose yourself in it. It has that like jamming sort of um, feeling to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
That makes a
it,
lot of sense, actually. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and there's an unpredictability with it that is, like I say, kind of like being in a room with somebody else. Like you can't control what the drummer's gonna do or the
Sure.
guitar player's gonna do, and it's like in a jam. So it's there's a little bit of that going on.
Well, and you have experience playing in relatively loud bands, relatively energetic bands. I mean, I think probably the first time I saw you play anywhere live would have been seeing Bucko when I was like in my early teens.
Right.
And so I mean, that was an energetic band. The Giants obviously were pretty a big stage show and a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, yeah.
This is kind of the opposite of that, and it's a solo thing. I like to just call it plugging things into a wall, which is sort of what it looks like sometimes.
Well,
But
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's pretty boring to watch,
so
to be honest.
how do you make an event then like this where there are performances exciting, or is it the fact that
Yeah,
everyone's so into this subject matter that they're
I think I think like the way the event rolled out is was in three sort of like sub events.
okay?
So there was the patch and tell, which is kind of like a show and tell. Uh, it was just the networking modular meetup kind of thing. So
Sure.
it was really just about kind of getting together. And like you said, with this kind of music, it is very generally solo and very solitary, and there's a lot of introverts in the scene.
No
So
doubt. Yeah, yeah.
like getting people to kind of come out of their shell and get together with like-minded people was a really cool aspect of the event, and that was what the patch and tell portion was about.
Okay.
The second event was modular on the spot. Modular on the spot is a kind of a global phenomenon now. It started in, I think, around 2013 2014 in California. A couple artists just pulled like a generator and their synths out into the desert
Oh, cool.
and played a impromptu kind of gig to whoever that showed up, and it's turned into this kind of idea of it being predominantly like a an impromptu kind of modular picnic.
Okay.
um, but it's sort of evolved, and like anything does, really the only rules are that it's all modular, and it's all outside, and it's all
Cool.
free. So that was the afternoon. It's like an open mic in a lot of ways. So people were invited to just say, yeah, I'm going to take a slot, and had 6 artists do that. And then the evening show, which was the main kind of curated concert, in a lucky twist of fate, every artist, like every musician, played with someone doing projections.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Projected
that
artwork
would help
behind
for
them.
sure for the visual
Yeah.
aspect of it. Yeah, yeah.
Matthew Cardinal from Edmonton was touring with media artist named Stephanie Coos from Saskatoon,
Okay.
and it just sort of stemmed from there. But that was one of the ways to kind of make it more visually interesting, like just by presenting a visual art aspect along with the sound. Like for the afternoon, it was really by the artist for the artists. The
Yeah,
public
yeah.
was welcome to hang out and just like listen and zone out on the clouds or whatever they wanted to do. But the evening was more of a spectacle by bringing that visual aspect to it. And I've noticed that is something that like, I mean, you must have watched a lot of live stream events over the
Over
year. Like
COVID, sure. Yeah,
over
absolutely.
COVID, yeah, we're so used to looking at screens now and associating like moving images on screens with the sound that we're hearing.
Definitely.
And I've seen with a lot of like modular synth live streams, they're doing exactly that. Like whether they're just setting up a camera over their system and you're looking at the blinking lights and the hands moving, it's not about seeing me like rocking out on it and like
Yeah,
going
yeah.
nuts. Like usually you're just sitting there like, as you said, plugging things into a wall. It's really not an exciting thing. Um, so yeah, it was a twist of fate that everybody had uh, some sort of visual component to what they were doing, and it really just threw it over the top, actually.
I've had that's great to hear, and I imagine the visual. There's room for the visuals to be improvised as well, depending on
Yeah,
what kind of art someone's making. Right? I'm sure
exactly. I
that would
think
go well together.
two of the artists, Stephanie Coos from Saskatoon, and Casey Coison. He's a Indigenous Yellowknife
Okay.
interdisciplinary sound artist. He came to the festival by way of Shotgun Jimmy and Leanne Zacharias. Jimmy and Casey are in art school together at
Okay.
U of
Okay.
M, and it was just a connection that they made, and I was able to bring him on board. And similarly, him and Stephanie, like they both basically live mixed
Oh, cool.
these video collages, and just really ethereal like imagery that meshed with the sound
Yeah.
perfectly. And similarly, the other two artists, Chris Harder, Bundegi, teamed up with Forstein for their set, and Ernie Dulanowski from Saskatoon essentially just had a plug-in on his laptop with his system to kind
Okay.
of like a big fancy VU meter. It just like iTunes visualizer kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
idea.
Sure. Sure.
Uh,
Sure.
so it was everything sort of reacted and worked with the music really well in that way. It wasn't just like put a movie on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, which I'm sure would work too. I'm sure
Yeah.
depending on who was performing and what the sound was, you could probably just put a movie on,
Hey,
depending on the movie, of course, as well, right?
Pink Floyd did it with
Yeah.
Over the
Totally.
Rainbow,
Totally.
Wizard of Oz.
So one of the things that's kind of come up whenever I've talked to people about this sort of style of music is that I don't think I get it. I don't like, and I say that just to because people have tried to show it to me and try to explain to me how it works,
Yeah.
and I'm interested. I'm definitely interested in it, but I'm not a gear person at all. Like when
Yeah.
I played in bands, I would use whatever guitar would sort of stay in tune, no matter how broken it was. I didn't know what brand my amp was, any of that stuff, and like I didn't know how to coil a guitar cord properly. You know what I
Right.
mean? So like there's a degree I think of it looks like there's a bit of a barrier to entry, and I might be wrong about this, but as far as like I see a bunch of wires and a bunch of knobs, and it
Totally
just
get
looks
it.
to be like I don't know what I'm doing. What is this? It's cool to watch people doing it who know how to
Yeah.
manipulate the sounds, but for me, there's this instant roadblock that comes up. Like, what is this?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a format for the gear nerds,
Sure, yeah, yeah,
because like that's really what it is just this fascination with the technology of it, for me anyways.
yeah, yeah.
And I mean, the fact that it makes sound is even better.
The
I
bonus, yeah.
Even through my punk rock days and stuff like that, I worked in record stores for years, and through that was just exposed to so much music that
Totally.
like like your hardcore punks might say, "Oh, yeah, what are you listening to that for?" And then you're like, ambient electronic musicians like, "Oh, what do you go to those punk shows for?"
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like hair metal guys are like, What do you like death metal for?" It's
yeah.
just like my
You
whole
can't
life
please
I've
everybody, yeah.
yeah, and my whole life I've always just like I've just liked music,
Yeah.
and I've been influenced by so many different genres and stuff like that. Uh, like I say, sonically, I don't exactly know what the appeal is specifically
The
about
bleep loops.
the bleep loops. I mean, there's stuff that I listen to that's crap. Like
Sure.
I don't want. It's every genre of music has crap and it has
It
great
definitely does,
stuff.
yeah.
So it's kind of like that with me.
Well, just
But
to maybe
this,
rewind a
yeah,
bit here, like when I say I don't understand it, one thing I do, even though I don't see myself ever making this kind of music, I
yeah,
respect the hell out of the DIY-ness of it all. I mean, there seems to be such a strong community of people, and it seems to be all collaborative and all helping each other out, and it gives me that kind of punk rock scene vibe, even though it's sonically very different.
yeah. No, that's something I've seen, and like a very politically progressive kind of
Sure.
crowd of people, uh, mostly as well. Like I mean, um, like community is definitely an aspect of it, and um, I like to describe the modular synthesizer, the Eurorack, the like this kind of uh, music in particular, as kind of like the Venn diagram of art, music, and technology,
Okay. Okay.
because it's sort of somewhere in the middle. Like uh, there's definitely a musicality in a lot of cases to it, but um, it's not like traditional songs in
Yeah.
many ways. And even like if like uh, Robert Alexander, who came out to the festival, is an incredible like house techno producer, and he
Okay.
did a set all on modular. It was just a snippet, like what he's capable of, and listening to him play like uh, fascinated me because he had definite like movements through his track,
Yeah.
and like reminiscent of verse chorus bridge yada kind
Which
of
is
thing.
probably
Like,
unheard of for most of what you guys are doing, right?
well, it's not unheard of. It's just really uh, you got to be really comfortable with your instrument to get there. Like
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out how I can play covers on this thing, to be honest, right now. Um, and I see some things that are really pleasing to me that are just that ambient, meandering,
Yeah.
generative kind of cloud of sound. And then I'm seeing people that are doing like precise arrangements, often with like some external sequencing gear and stuff like that, but
Sure.
sometimes within the system itself. And it's just like I guess the fascination comes from that, is like this sort of never ending possibility of like what things can sound like. Scott Clark had parts of his set that were like sounding like Rush meets industrial music kind of
Wow.
thing, like hard rock on the modular, and then like um yeah, it's just like I've yet to hear two artists. Well, actually, this is a lie because there's lots of there's lots of stuff that sounds kind of the samey, but um like it's very broad, the genres that are being represented with this kind of form. And then like historically, I guess there's you got your switched on Bach and um like musique concrète
Sure.
producers that like worked a lot with tape and stuff like that, but bringing electronics into sound creation in the early 60s and stuff was a completely different
Yeah,
world.
yeah. You just the equipment you have possibility to have at your disposal, and the size of it and everything has got to be
Hmm.
radically different now. Yeah. What is the I mean, I first of all, it's awesome that you managed to make the festival work this year. Obviously, with COVID and everything else happening,
Yeah,
how do you sort of one up that now? Hopefully, this
I
situation we're
know.
in is not going to last for another year or two, right? I hope anyway. So, are there big names in the community that you'd like to bring in that would be sort of worthwhile to for people to pick
Oh,
their brains or to perform?
I think there would be like both international and Canadian names that would be kind of amazing to have like
Yeah,
as a anchor performer. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind being in Manitoba is Venetian Snares.
for sure. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he did. Um, uh, oh, now I'm blanking on the album, but he did a whole modular synth album recently.
Okay.
With the dots on the cover.
Well, he's probably the highest profile electronic artist from Manitoba, I would think, right at this
Oh
point.
yeah, I think at this point for sure.
Yeah.
Um, people were kind of joking with me about like, oh, you get Suzanne Ciani to come to Manitoba for this, or like Scanner or Richard Devine or something like that. Look Mum No Computer. I don't know if you've ever
I
looked
haven't.
those
It's a good name
videos up.
though.
Yeah, he's pretty brilliant. He builds his own systems. He's got his own format and does crazy stuff with Furbies.
Oh wow, sounds like it'd be fun to
uh,
watch at least. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, he's like a hacker and stuff like that. But I think that is kind of in many ways what the next step is to one up it, is to try and swing it so that I can bring kind of an international presence to it
Yeah.
and make it less about when I started it. My thought process was that there are these little pocket communities in Brandon, in Regina, in Alberta,
Yeah.
and you go out east. Toronto and Montreal have their own kind of world going on, and there's like lots of activity. Like the bigger metropolitan areas just have stronger scenes
For
for this
anything, I
kind
guess,
of
right?
for anything
For
really.
more
Yeah,
people. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. And I mean, one thing I've always loved about Winnipeg is how um, through necessity all of the different uh, um, kind of areas of art kind of came together. So like
it's very
musicians and theater
incestuous. Yeah,
folk and dance uh, and like visual arts and stuff like that. Like the scenes are all just intermingled.
totally.
Um, but yeah, like the idea was like, let's just kind of create a hub where prairie musicians can kind of gather once a year or every couple of years and
Yeah,
like and nerd out on the modular stuff and it would be like, you know, being in Toronto and being able to go to the monthly meetups and or being in Vancouver or whatever. And
without
then
having
it's
to
sort
get
of
a plane. Yeah,
yeah. So it was just this idea like creating like a place for prairie community to kind of like uh, potentially recognize. But now it's kind of like, yeah, maybe it's just a festival that is on the prairies.
yeah.
And you know, I did other like small online productions over the course of the years, like a couple drone day events.
Okay.
I did a live stream concert series called Quiet Concerts that during the pandemic, like it was supposed to be a headphone concert at the library,
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
inspired by the Bring Your Own Headphones concerts that happened in Winnipeg at the Goodwill.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I've just got this bug now of like producing shows and events that I kind of always had. I mean, I've put on shows at the West End. I've put on
Different
gigs
type of
at the
stuff though.
Albert,
This
but
is
different
obviously
type of
yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, this was so much different. So it's yeah, it really can only step up or just
Yeah.
disappear if that's
Well, hopefully it's the former rather than the latter. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, Brandon is but one city and one region in the prairies. Like
Yeah.
it as an organizer, I could see doing it in other areas, whether it's in the cities like in Winnipeg or Regina,
Yeah.
or going out to Riding Mountain National Park as an example, or like Spruce Woods, or
That'd be cool. That'd be a
like
cool venue for
yeah,
it. Yeah.
like kind of creating uh, dare I say folk festy vibe, but without the folk festy vibe.
With the different kind of hippies, electronic hippies. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, there's already festivals for the electronic hippies.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. So you with your own stuff, have
Yeah.
you heard any of this? Is this just basically an experimental project? Are you trying to get some of your music out there?
Um, you know, I haven't started doing any like kind of recording, but I have actually been getting some opportunities to perform live.
Okay.
It's been so weird moving to Brandon, and I don't know if it's just because of the time in my life and stuff, but um, kind of moving to Brandon and exploring this has created some new opportunities for me, I guess. Brandon has a pretty um, small creative community.
Yeah. Well, it's a
Um,
small city. Just
it's a small city,
yeah.
small creative community. We have an art gallery, and we have a school of music and
Yeah,
a
at the
visual art
university.
department at the university.
Yeah.
So my immediate network has become people around that. So
Okay.
I'm friends with some of the music professors, some of the art professors, people that work at the art gallery, um, and by accessing that, like it's just kind of like it sort of created weird opportunities that I wasn't getting in Winnipeg to perform
Hmm. That's interesting.
improvisational. I like that. So I played a couple gigs at the art gallery. I've been collaborating with one of the with a professor of low brass, Dr. Aaron Wilson at the university here.
Oh, cool.
Um, and we've actually got a gig coming up on October 15th that trying to figure out what we're going to do, combining trombone and effects and synth. Yeah. And we've done it before. Prairie Wires 2019, we kind of dabbled a bit in that. And um, yeah, it's just I'm kind of at an impasse as far as like where I'm moving with my own music and art. But I'm getting ideas.
Yeah.
I'm always creating, and it's just like what is that outlet? Is it a live performance? Is it recording or working towards a recording? And I've yeah, there's
It sounds like
Sorry.
you're occupied though. You've making use
I
of this new passion and finding ways
I
to, yeah,
exactly, and I mean,
indulge it.
I think by creating the festival in itself is kind of like a way of exploring that passion
Sure.
and participating in it in a different way. That's not just like that's not being the musician or the artist. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah,
it's kind of similar to what I'm doing with this podcast in that I'm staying involved in the music community in a way that makes sense for me.
yeah,
Now that I haven't played in bands in 15 years or whatever, right? So yeah, it's
yeah,
similar. Yeah, for sure. I get it. I know the feeling.
yeah.
So for people who are new to the festival and maybe this is their first time hearing about it, and or want to check it out and check out some of the artists around it, what's the best way to sort of get involved going
Uh,
forward?
um, I mean, prairiewires.ca is the website,
Okay.
and it's relatively up to date. Whenever there's an event going on, it'll be on the front page. There's some videos that like links to the YouTube channel.
Oh, cool.
Um, Instagram and Facebook at Prairie Wires,
Okay.
all one word kind of thing. There's pages to follow. And yeah, I mean, I don't have a mailing list or anything like that at this point, but just following on social media and whatnot, I can I'm always there to answer questions and um, when events are happening, I try and get the word out as much as I can.
Awesome.